we live in a beautiful microbiome where we have learned how to come into balance with all of our predators all throughout history. And now all of a sudden we have this spike in mold and Lyme and virus illness, as if in our entire history, we didn't have those things before. And I realized after reading some of my own studies that some people's bodies learn how to live in harmony with whatever is in there. They learn how to come into balance. And that was my aha. These bugs in my system are a reflection of my psychological, energetic, emotional state. If they're super active and in attack mode, I'm in super defense mode and in inflammatory mode. And I decided to stop trying to eradicate illness, and I wanted to become a symbiotic relationship like Mother Earth. And I really attuned to that perceptional frequency, and that changed the game for me.
Okay, I'm super excited to introduce, this is a sister from another mother. I mean, she is brilliant. Okay, Dr. Cathleen King, doctor of physical therapy, now specialing a neuroscience educator and mentor, which is the key. You change the brain, you change the body. Chronic illness and trauma patterns, weaving together brain retraining and nervous system regulation, polyvagal theory, somatics. Just in the little bit of research that I've done on you, it's nobody talks about physical, chemical, emotional stress. You were the first doc doing this. Now, can you share your story? Because I know a little bit about it, but you have the story of probably 50% of all the people that come to see me.
Yeah, sure. Well, I have the background of being a physical therapist. So I've studied physical medicine and neurology. And I also have the background of being sick, and I have the background of dealing with a lot of trauma and being unable to process medicine and unable to handle mold and simple chemicals. So my history is that I grew up in a lot of trauma. I was the overachiever, though. I took that route, and I, studied my way into understanding the body, and eventually my body broke down. I was traveling. I was in a very dysfunctional relationship. I got a parasite, got mold exposure, the whole thing, the perfect storm. And then I was the mystery illness person for a decade, going from doctor to doctor, and they're trying this anxiety medicine and this, stomach acid producing medicine, and just, the whole thing. And realizing I couldn't handle most of these treatments. I felt cursed. I felt broken. And I had enough intelligence from my training to be like, there's got to be something else going on. Like, what is happening? I did get stuck in the medical system for a good 10 years. Eventually, I picked up diagnoses like chronic Lyme disease, chronic viral infections, parasites, mold toxicity, gene mutations, like blah, 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 the whole thing. And eventually, after spending everything we had, I was in a dark, quiet room because I now couldn't even handle light and sound. I had two small children. I had full-time care for them because I was stuck in bed. And I was like, they aren't fixing it. I'm not fixing it. What is going on? And I remembered some of the work of John Sarno, who I'd studied for mind-body illness with pain. And I didn't have pain because I didn't believe in pain because I studied pain. But I thought, what if that same method would work for infection? What if the brain has more control than anyone is telling me? What if it would work for my ability to detoxify? And I started digging in, and I'm like, sure enough, there are cases of people reversing this with changing their neurology. So I started doing a combination of functional neurology and brain retraining, and did the exercises I taught my own patients for chronic pain 10 years prior. Sure enough, I started to pull out of the symptoms that I was experiencing, and that was the turning point. And that's where I started weaving everything together and then wanting to shout from the rooftops another way through chronic illness.
I mean, one of the ways that I explain it to some of my patients, okay, because they own the mold exposure or they own the Lyme disease. Okay, so 10 people are in a room, they all get bit by a tick or mold. Do they all get the disease? And they always say no. Okay, so what's, there's different factors there. And now I love that you stated before that the only infection that people have is the infection of fear. So
Yeah.
are you telling me that viruses, funguses, bacteria are not predators, they're scavengers, and that it has to do with the environment? You
We
radical.
we live in a beautiful microbiome where we have learned how to come into balance with all of our predators all throughout history. And now all of a sudden we have this spike in mold and Lyme and virus illness, as if in our entire history we didn't have those things before. And I realized after reading some of my own studies that some people's bodies learn how to live in harmony with whatever is in there. They learn how to come into balance. And that was my aha. These bugs in my system are a reflection of my psychological, energetic, emotional state. If they're super active and in attack mode, I'm in super defense mode and in inflammatory mode. And I decided to stop trying to eradicate illness, and I wanted to become a symbiotic relationship like Mother Earth. And I really attuned to that perceptional frequency, and that changed the game for me.
Oh my God. Okay, then what that I know on your sites and things, you talk about primal trust. Is that what you're talking about? What do you mean when you say that?
First, the question is, where does our safety come from? Where is it supposed to come from? We are brainwashed into it coming from the medical system, from having a perfect body, from having our work go a certain way, making a certain income. We've lost the transmission that our trust comes from the flow of life itself. And nature is not always perfect in every way. Some trees get struck by lightning and others get to grow. Some animals live and others are prey. It's a trust that nature has an intelligence and that we are part of that intelligence. So primal trust is the missing trust that we have a universal flow that we're part of. And if we lean into that, our bodies know how to function. There's an innate healing capacity. Nature knows how to grow a leaf on a tree, and we have that same capacity. So it's trust in life itself. It's trust in our intelligence. It's trust that we're here because there's some purpose, or else we wouldn't be here. And I realized that because of trauma, I completely lost my trust in life itself. I, did the whole religion thing for many years, and I didn't trust anything. I was in protection mode. So I needed to learn how to trust the flow of life. I needed to learn how to trust in a source intelligence. I needed to learn how to trust that my body can rebalance the microorganisms in the way that nature intended for eons of time. And that's what primal trust is.
Oh my God. Innate intelligence. How many, I guess I know you interact with a lot of different healthcare professions. How many people understand, have the awareness that there's an intelligence in the body? Oh, God bless Kat for finding you. Okay, mastery of consciousness. Okay, the brain-body signaling connection. Can you get into that? Because this is fantastic.
This is huge. We have lost the training of how to be aware of the state of our nervous system, to have a feedback loop of how to meet our needs in the moment. The mastery of consciousness is the choice to become aware of our internal state. Are we having an emotion that we are suppressing or that needs to be processed? Are we aware of our body's needs for food, water, for what we should even be eating? Are we aware that we are in so much resentment to this relationship that we're wanting them to act differently towards us, but we are spitting out venom inside of us? The mastery of consciousness is what is happening inside of you that you actually have some conscious control to shift rather than being in a state of reaction. And in that shift of awareness, and in that shift of I'm feeling this, I need to process this, I need to forgive this, I need to attend to this, the brain and the body start to form a trusting relationship again. Your body starts to trust you're going to listen. Your inner psyche starts to trust that you're going to feel the feelings. And in that trust, there's a process that starts to shift that we'll talk about called the cell danger response. And our autonomic nervous system starts to come into balance because we've established primal trust inside of ourselves through our conscious awareness of attending to our body and attending to the signaling that's happening.
I tell people, okay, you're sitting on a three-legged stool: physical, chemical, and emotional stress. You have to address all three, otherwise healing cannot occur. And disease is really the body adapting to this. So when you talk about the cell danger response, and that is the end result of those stressors. Can you describe that? Plus polyvagal theory, brain retraining. I mean, it's just exactly what we talk about, but different words.
You want me to geek out a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. Oh God,
Okay,
yeah. Are
great.
you kidding? Neurology. That's my down home. You would have loved the
Yeah.
conference. I went to a conference this weekend, and there's a couple of guys that are into healing people in neurology. Man, it was a nerd fest. It was
Oh,
totally cool. You would have loved it. You would have loved it.
yeah, I totally would. All right, cell danger response, coined by Robert Navio. To me, this understanding it's the first thing I teach when somebody comes into the Primal Trust program. In the first module, we learn about cell danger response, because if you can understand the theory and the science of what that means, then you realize, oh my gosh, I can shift my cellular function by simply finding ways to get out of cell danger response. And I actually relabel most illnesses. If you want to diagnose these, I call it cell danger response. So it's important. Look it up. It's good stuff. But what it means is that our cells have a normal function to go into cell danger response when we have toxins and pathogens and physical and emotional stress hit our system. And it's a healthy response. It's the way the cell protects itself from being invaded or from having too many toxins or being injured. The problem is that some people, for many reasons, that cell danger response doesn't turn off. And when it doesn't turn off, the cells stay in perpetual danger. And when they're in perpetual danger, the cell wall hardens. Mitochondria starts signaling stress, a stress signal to tell all of the other cells to protect themselves. Stop detoxifying, stop producing this, stop letting the nutrients inside the cell because we're in danger right now. And so our mitochondria gets affected, our cell wall gets affected, and therefore our ability to detoxify. Our immune system gets totally dysregulated. And in general, we are in a state of irritation all the way down to the cellular level that is ongoing. And there's certain people that get stuck in this type of response. That's why some people can have the mold exposure, the viral exposure, the pathogen, and they go through the up of the cell danger response and they come down and they go back into life. Other people go up and they stay up as if they are sick for months, if not years, and they don't understand why. And it's because at a cellular level, your cells are still protecting themselves. And that habit of protection is exactly that. It's a habit of protection that often started as a child. That's what I see. Or you've been in a very toxic environment as an adult for too long, and you've gotten in a habit of protection plus a pathogen exposure or a chemical exposure. And there's your perfect storm. So the key is getting out of cell danger response. And there are ways that you can do that. And there are ways without medications that you can do that. And sometimes when you learn how to combine appropriate functional medicine with brain retraining, et cetera, that's even a better win-win if you understand what's happening.
Yesterday, for the first adjustment, the 17-year-old kid, she's a really sweet gal. She has no idea what to do with the future. And I told her, I said, well, you're going to be alive. Okay, you got to learn how to take care of your body. So I'm going to show you how your body works. But, we really need more doctors in this world that are smart. Okay, someone should be a chiropractor. So have you heard of high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, elevations in cholesterol? And she says, yeah. I said, none of those exist. They're all an intelligent adaptation by the body. And it just blows people's minds when you tell the truth. Now in chiropractic, have you ever heard of ADIO? Okay, you talk about top down, bottom up. ADIO is healing has to occur from this universal intelligence above, and the brain information flows down from the inside, so you heal from the inside out. Above, down, inside out. Can you describe your top down, bottom up? I know. I'm telling you, the more we know about our approach is going after the same thing to ignite that fire of cell production. So the body produces healthy cells, okay, rather than cells that are adaptive response cells. Oh, yeah. Hun, we could nerd out like crazy.
I would
Okay,
love
so
it.
what's the top down, bottom up? Because I'm really excited to hear.
Top down simply means we are consciously sending signals from our brain into our body, from the top down into the body. A bottom up approach means we are attuning to the body and getting a perception and getting a presence with the body so that we can send a different signal back up to the brain. Our body and our brain are constantly communicating to each other. It's a feedback loop. A lot of therapies focus on one or the other and have a certain amount of success doing that. And I feel like you need both for best results. And so we do brain retraining as a top-down approach. We do somatic work, vagus nerve toning, breath work, trauma work to focus on that bottom up. And that combination seems to be the secret sauce to helping people unlock that innate healing capacity of bringing their vital force in, switching their electromagnetic field from all angles. And like we talked about before with the cell danger response, the mitochondria, it goes into that response because there's a voltage change in the mitochondria. So there's an electromagnetic signal change. To affect that electric magnetic signal, getting into the heart through that top-down communication and through the body communication is the best way to hit the focus point on the cell, that mitochondria, to shift the entire function.
Brilliant. Have you ever heard of the safety pin cycle?
Mm-mm.
Okay, it's a safety pin like this. Okay, the brain sends a signal down to the body responds to that signal, then it sends a signal back up to the brain to explain the physiology. And if you disconnect that safety pin, you're missing the connection or the communication. This is old school chiropractic philosophy. It's just so cool. Okay, now fight or flight, we do heart rate variability on every patient. Okay, that I'm familiar with. Fight, flight, freeze, find, fawn. Okay.
It's just a tongue twister to entertain me.
I know. My tongue just hurt saying that. But yeah. So what is that?
Okay. So we talked earlier about that conscious awareness that we're trying to create. The conscious awareness in all my clients, I want them to find what state their nervous system is in right now, because depending on their state, their internal state, that internal state will shape your perception of the world or the outer state. And that's part of the polyvagal theory. So understanding what your physiological state is and the flight, fight, freeze, or fawn are states of the nervous system. Fight means you're protective, you're wanting to go towards, you're wanting that argument, you're wanting to prove yourself right, you're going towards the thing. And that's getting in touch with that. Wow, I want to fight. How can I come into more balance with this fighting energy? Do I need to discharge anger in a healthier way than yelling at my partner? So it's finding a way to meet where your physiology is at, recognizing it's giving you a perception that there's a threat coming after you. And how can I discharge that in a higher and better way so I don't do more collateral damage to my relationship and then to me? So that's one. Flight means to want to run away. I want to hide what I want to say. I want to please this person because I don't want them to get mad at me. I want to remove myself from this situation. Some of that's all aspects of flight. It could also be aspects of fawning as well, but it's getting in touch again, conscious awareness. Oh, I feel that this is how I want to respond. I feel my nervous system wanting to retreat. What would be a higher and better way to get some space to be with my feelings so that I can come forward and be in a more regulated state to deal with what I need to deal with? And again, conscious awareness. Freeze. Freeze is when we are so overwhelmed, we don't know what to say and do. Overwhelm. That's the best way to say freeze. There's often a very functional freeze where we're moving through the world, but we are just locked up. Our speech is pretty monotone. We don't have the capacity to do anything. And that's just an overwhelmed nervous system. So again, getting in touch with freeze, like, wow, I need to get my body to move some energy. I need to move some emotion because my system is locked with too much. So how can I discharge some of this energy? So that would be some of the conscious awareness and the tools you'd learn to discharge freeze. Fawning is people pleasing, another kind of aspect that can go into freeze and even flee. So fawning is just like, oh, I'm not going to say anything to upset them, and I'm going to go against myself in order to please them, and you end up hurting your own physiology doing that. You're trying to avoid conflict, but you end up causing internal conflict. That's so important. And then, was there one more?
No, that I gotta tell you, I love the because you see those different types of personality, and people aren't going to associate it with a fight or flight, but it's the same thing. It's like being passive. There's I taught human dissection for about 8 years, and to explain this fight or flight response, I'd ask the students, I said, what's the connection between the hand and the eye? And I'm a guest lecturer, so I'm kind of intimidating, so that please don't ask me, I don't know. So I'd pick a guy with light colored eyes, and I'd pinch between the thumb and the finger, 1, 2, 3, and I'd squeeze really hard, and so you get dilation of the pupils. And so now all of a sudden I said, yeah, but you just saw the pupils dilate. What just happened to the liver? Oh, the liver's starting to break glycogen down to glucose. What happened to blood supply to the gut? Oh, it decreased. What happened? In the segmented view of the modern healthcare system, they don't know that everything is interdependent and everything is reacting correctly. I never thought that fawn type personality where, oh, it's okay, it's not really, that is a stress state, and it is. So to diagnose that this person in that fawn thing is destroying themselves, their blood sugar is going to be elevated, their immune system is going to weak. I mean, brilliant. Now, adult main personality, okay, and utilize parts work for trauma. Please, I mean, I'm going to be rewatching this, by the way.
So when I was trying to heal, I had a mentor, and I was always running to her, I mean, like, oh, I'm so scared about this, and I've got this and this and this. And I was this scared little child. And she's like, you need to put your big girl pants on and awaken that inner adult. And I'm like, what does that mean? And she taught me the first concept of an inner adult main personality that didn't fully develop in me. Now, I developed a very go-getter type A personality, but that was a stress response. That was not an adult. It was somebody fighting and going towards life. I thought it was a healthy adult, but it was very dysfunctional. A healthy adult is the adult that can recognize when the child in the room needs to rest, needs to eat, what they need. I needed to develop a healthy inner adult, a main personality, not have it be a sub-personality, but my main personality, to learn how to handle the lab reports that I was getting from my doctors, to learn how to handle the symptoms, to learn how to handle relationships. And I needed to find mentors in my life to see what a healthy adult looked like. And fortunately, I had one. Her name is Dorothy. I talk about her all the time. She taught me how to put my big girl pants on. She taught me how to hold space for the discomfort. She taught me how to attend to my needs. And then from there are parts of me, my wounded child, my protector, my pleaser, that we talk about. You hear a lot in the internal family systems work by Richard Schwartz. Parts of our personality that need a healthy adult to attend to them, to witness them, to see them. And in Primal Trust, the approach I use with chronic illness, we are attending to a lot of fragmented aspects of ourself, our scared parts, our protective parts, but you cannot hold space for them and process those emotions if there's not a healthy inner adult present to sit with those feelings, to hear the stories, and to come up with a different perspective on that story that calms down the limbic system. Ultimately, you cannot calm down the limbic system if what's talking to the limbic system, the emotional center of the brain, is a scared child or a hyperprotective protector. You've got to find, in internal family systems, they call it the overarching self. I didn't read that at the time. I just called it my inner adult main personality at the time. That's what made sense. So does that explain parts and inner adult to you?
It does. Now, yeah, limbic system, emotional stuff. Okay, nervous system. Okay, how do you recognize the limbic system impairment?
Yeah, so
because I'm a guy and we don't talk about emotions.
Yes, it's called a limbic system impairment, but you want to know, I actually feel like it's not impaired. It's reacting exactly like
yes. Oh yes, fantastic.
I hate calling it that. I just do it because that's what people know. But the limbic system is intelligent. It just thinks you're stressed, and it's believing that you're running from a tiger. And it's responding like everything is a tiger. A limbic system impairment is when that part of our brain, our amygdala, our hippocampus, its association with the hypothalamus, starts producing a lot of stress chemistry all the time to respond to your internal influences like toxins, pathogens, even normal food and chemicals, and external influences, your partner, your spouse, where everything becomes a threat. Everything you feel, everything you think, everything they say, and it kind of goes rogue into everything's a threat. It's not actually going rogue. You are training it to think that. You are believing the thoughts that think it. So it's just responding to how you believe. It's responding to how you believe. And so we address the limbic system by shifting our response, our perceptions of our internal environment, of what it means when our blood pressure spikes, and our external environment, what our spouse is doing or whatever. You can retrain that threat response to dial itself down, to have more tolerance to both internal and external stimuli.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, how do you, I know there's a test called an ACE score. What is that?
Yeah, the ACE study.
Yeah, because well, I mean, we do, heart rate variability, rolling thermo, surface electromyography. I mean, a bunch of stuff. I've never heard of an ACE.
So just Google childhood ACE study by Kaiser Permanente. It was done in the late 90s. And it was a study that's really phenomenal, where it asked you different questions about your childhood, basically looking for different types of traumatic events. There's 10 questions. Depending on how many questions you answer yes to, this particular traumatic event happened, there is a correlation to addiction and to chronic illness and suicide and all sorts of things. So the childhood ACEs score is, what is your score out of 10? I believe like at a score of 4 or more, you have a very high likelihood of chronic illness and addiction, etc. My score was a 9 out of 10, maybe arguably 10 out of 10. I had every setup to have chronic illness. I first knew about this test before I got sick, and I said, oh, I beat the odds. I didn't end up with chronic illness. I was the overachiever back then. No, I didn't. I absolutely didn't. My crash and burn did come. And so it's a predictive factor for chronic illness. It's very helpful to know, like, oh, wow, I've got this score. I should learn nervous system regulation. I should do some trauma healing, because if not, the stats are lined up against me when it comes to addiction, chronic illness, etc.
Wow. It's when I met my wife, she had ulcerative colitis, all sorts of health issues, and every family member she has is a doctor. So you're looking at 25 years of using a toxic, poisonous chemicals, multiple of them, to alter her physiology. You, I mean, are talking that your body is adapting correctly based on the stimulus, or based on your perception of the stimulus. That nobody talks like that. I mean, I thought I was the only one. I thought it was a lone voice in the wilderness. Okay, so now, honestly, just with what I've known about you and just talking to you, my audience has got to get a hold of you. Okay, and I know you're a partner now too. So how can they learn more about the Primal Trust Academy? How can they get in touch with you?
Well, I do have a YouTube channel. It's pretty small. Primaltrust.org. I think there's a link probably in the show notes for your affiliate, so they can find me there. Instagram, I've got a ton of free information, primaltrust_official. So Instagram, YouTube, on my website, I've got a bunch of free information to learn. And then we have a membership where I take people through this entire process in Primal Trust, primaltrust.org.
Oh my God. When you look at in our society now, they actually think disease exists. Okay, that and then I'll say, okay, fibromyalgia exists. Really? What shape is it? What flavor is it? How heavy is it? Or is it really the body adapting to the stressors? Doc, you're addressing the underlying stressors. They say kids pick the parents. You got smart kids.
You need one. My kids went through hell when I was sick, and I'm like, why did this happen? I'm like, well, I know the tools to help them when they're ready to deal with
it. Yeah, they're gonna be independent, strong. Yeah. This has been so much fun. It's just, you are going after the source of how the body regenerates. You regenerate tissue faster than you break down. That's called health. You break down faster than you build. That's called a lack of ease. I'm sorry, disease. You're on the you're right on, and you rock. Thank you, dear. This has been fun. Hopefully, this is like part one of a
I would
couple.
love to come back. These are the questions I love to talk about. Not many people want to hear about neuroscience. So,
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like some of the stuff that I do, I'd like to correlate it with what you do because, like, I just had she's a producer, super high stress gal. She's got two of forced medical procedures that we can't talk about. Okay, but that causes a significant trauma in the blood. If you've ever seen a live blood cell analysis, yeah, freaking horrible. So I had her sitting on a bench, just swinging her legs, okay, with a weight to get the cross crawl activity to get, both him out. And she couldn't get her legs to swing in an even fashion. And so if you have time, I would love to explore that stuff in the future to find out your approach so that people can start doing this stuff at home.
yeah, 100%. I've got lots of ideas about that.
Thank you so much, Doc. You're amazing. Amazing. Yeah, you're definitely the king. God bless you, my dear. You rock.